Fabulous morning to all. Welcome to English video section of 8. In this section, we are going to learn about the prose, Sir Isaac Newton, the ingenious scientist, written by Nathaniel Hawthorne. The authors about Nathaniel Hawthorne was born on July 4, 1804 and died on May 19, 1864. He was an American novelist, dark romantic and short story writer. His works often focus on history, morality and religion. He was born in 1804 in Salem, Massachusetts to Nathaniel Hawthorne and the former Elizabeth Clark Manning. The biography of Sir Isaac Newton was published in Nathaniel Hawthorne's True Stories from History and Biography, 1851. There are so many great people in the world. Now let's see some philosophies and great scientists. Before we enter the class, let's see the warm-up page. In pairs, identify the great thinkers of the world and write the names from the box. இப்போ நம்ம நிறைய சயின்டிஸ்ட்டு ஃபிலாசபிஸ்ட்டு நேம்ஸ்லாம் பார்த்தோம் இல்லையா, ஸோ அதுலேருந்து தான் இந்த பேஜ் இருக்கும். ஸோ நீங்கள் இதில் உள்ளதை நீங்கள் ஃபில் பண்ணி வச்சுருங்க. ஓகேவா? லெட்ஸ் see the class. செக்ஷன் 1. இந்த செக்ஷன் 1 வந்து உங்களுக்கு ரீடிங் ப்ராக்டிஸ்க்காக உள்ளது. ஸோ நீங்கள் அகைன் அண்ட் அகைன் இதை நீங்கள் நல்லா ரீட் பண்ணிங்க அப்படின்னா உங்களோட ப்ரொனன்சியேஷன் கரெக்டாக இருக்கும். ஸோ ரீட் த ஃபாலோயிங் பேசேஜ் ஆன் சர் ஐசக் நியூட்டன். ஆன் கிறிஸ்மஸ் டே இன் த இயர் 1642, ஐசக் நியூட்டன் வாஸ் born at the small village of Woolsthorpe in England. Little did his mother think, when she beheld her newborn babe, that he was destined to explain many matters which had been a mystery even since the creation of the world. Isaac's father being dead, Mrs. Newton was married again to a clergyman and went to reside at North with him. Isaac was left to the care of his good old grandmother, who was very kind to him and sent him to school. In his early years, Isaac was chiefly remarkable for his ingenuity in all mechanical occupations. He had a set of little tools and saws of various sizes manufactured by himself. With the aid of this, Isaac contrived to make many curious articles at which he worked with so much skill that he seemed to have been born with a saw or chisel in his hand. Let's see the explanation. Isaac Newton was born on Christmas Day in the year 1642 in a small village called Woolsthorpe in England. His mother thought that he was destined to explain many matters and mystery creation of the world. After his father died and his mother remarried a clergyman and went to reside at North with them. So Newton, brought up by his grandmother, who was very kind to him and sent him to school. In school days, he was remarked for his ingenuity. He invented many curious articles with his tools that he seemed to have been born with a saw or chisel in his hand. Let's see the next para. The neighbor looked with vast admiration at the things which Isaac manufactured, and his old grandmother, I suppose, was never weary of talking about him. He will make a capital workman one of these days, she would probably say. No fear but what Isaac will do well in the world and be a rich man before he dies. Let's see the explanation. His neighbors and grandmother admired his inventions and believed he would be a capital workman in future. Let's see the next paragraph. Some of his friends, no doubt, advised Isaac's grandmother to apprentice him to a clock maker, for besides his mechanical skill, the boy seemed to have a taste for mathematics, which would be very useful to him in that profession. And then, in due time, Isaac would set up for himself and would manufacture curious clocks like those that contain set of dancing figures which issue from the dial plate when the hour is struck, or like those where a ship sails across the face of the clock and is seen tossing up and down on the waves as often as the pendulum vibrates. Now let's see the explanation. Children, are you ready? His friends and neighbors wanted him to be an apprentice for a clock maker. Newton was good in mechanical skill and mathematics. He made curious clocks like dancing figures, the sailing ship as the pendulum vibrates. Let's see the next paragraph. Indeed, there was some ground for supposing that Isaac would devote himself to the manufacture of clocks, since he had already made one of a kind which nobody had ever heard of before. It was set going not by wheels and weights like other clocks, but by a dropping of water. This was an object of great wonderment to all the people in the neighborhood, and it must be confessed that there are few boys or men either who could contrive to tell what o'clock it is by means of a bowl of water. Children, are you ready to know the meaning of this paragraph? Isaac had already made one of a kind of clock. No one heard this type of clocks because he made by the dropping of water. Normally, they used to tell the time by name of seconds, but now he has created one clock by the water. By seeing water drop, they are able to tell the time. Now let's see the next paragraph. Beside the water clock, Isaac made a sundial. Thus his grandmother was never at a loss to know the hour, for the water clock would tell it in the shade and the dial in the sunshine. The sundial is said to be still in existence at Woolsthorpe, on the corner of the house where Isaac dwelt. Isaac possessed a wonderful faculty of acquiring knowledge by the simplest means. For instance, what method do you suppose he took? To find out the strength of the wind, he jumped against the wind, and by the length of his jump, he could calculate the force of a gentle breeze, a brisk gale, or a tempest. Thus, even in his boyish sports, he was continuously searching out the secrets of philosophy. Now, let's see the explanation. He made water clock and sundial, which is still in his house of Woolsthorpe. He acquired knowledge in simple ways. He jumped against the wind and found out the strength of the wind. Now we want to move on to the next paragraph. Not far from his grandmother's resistance, there was a windmill which operated on a new plan. Isaac was in the habit of going thither frequently and would spend whole hours in examining its various parts. While the mill was at rest, he peered into its internal machinery. When its boat sails were set in motion by the wind, he watched the process by which the wind stones were made to revolve and crush the grain that was put into the hopper. After gaining a thorough knowledge of its construction, he was observed to be unusually busy with his tools. His grandmother's resistance, there was a windmill located in far away. He often went to a windmill and would spend whole hours in examining its various parts. He learned the construction and watched the process by which the millstones were made to revolve and crush the grain that was put into the hopper. After his knowledge, he made a small windmill. Children, now let's see the section 1 laws paragraph. It was not long before his grandmother and all the neighborhood knew what Isaac had been about. He had constructed a model of the windmill, though not so large, I suppose, as one of the box traps which boys set to catch squirrels at every part of the mill, and its machinery was complete. Its little sails were neatly made of line and whirled round very swiftly when the mill was placed in a draught of air. Even a puff of wind from Isaac's mouth or from a pair of blows was sufficient to set the sails in motion. And what was most curious, if a handful of grains of wheat were put into the little hopper, they would soon be converted into snow white flour. Now let's see the explanation. All the neighborhood and grandmother knew about Isaac's knowledge and admired. Even a puff of wind from Isaac's mouth or from a pair of billows was sufficient to set the sails in motion. And the small windmill was capable of crushing a handful of grains of wheat into flour. Next, we want to know about the section 1 glossary. Ingenuity, the ability to invent things or creativity. Contrived, created or invented. Apprentice, works for someone to learn skill. Acquiring, getting knowledge or skill. Pride, investigated. Hopper, funnel-shaped bins for feeding grains into mills. Now, let's see the section 1, filling the blanks and choose the correct synonyms. A. Filling the blanks. Isaac Newton was born at Woolsthorpe in England. Second, grandmother was advised to apprentice him to a clock maker. Third, Isaac made a clock by the dropping of water. The sundial made by Isaac is still in existence at Woolsthorpe at the corner of his house. Fifth one, Isaac constructed a model of the windmill. Next, choose the correct synonyms. Isaac was chiefly remarkable for his ingenuity. Remarkable means notable. Next, he will make a capital workman. Capital means head. Nobody could tell what the sunshine was composed of. The meaning composed of means made. He cared little for earthly fame and honors. The word fame means popularity. I hope you all are enjoyed this section 1. Children, we will see the next class. Thank you all. Be safe and take care.